And before I bring up Dr. DeAndrea, I just wanted to say that I know her personally. My husband and herself, they used to work together a few years ago at the University of Texas in Austin. And I met her, and immediately I fell in love with her. She is a kindred spirit. She is a powerful woman of God. She is a scholar, and she's a sister friend. And she didn't put this in her bio, but she is seriously a womanist and a black feminist. So it is my pleasure and my privilege to bring up and introduce Dr. DeAndrea Bones.
Thank you, and thank you for that introduction. I am happy to be here today, and I say happy. I'm filled with joy to be able to share this message with you today. When we ever have an opportunity to speak to a group of people, it's a challenge to us first, to speak to ourselves, like to thine own self be true. And so you can't say something you've not lived yourself. And so I can't ask you to do something that I'm not already challenging myself to do as well. And so I hope that what I have to share for you today will inspire you, it will encourage you, but I hope more than anything it will convict you into action. That it will propel you into destiny, that it will push you to go further than you've gone before. And in this season, in this hour, it is necessary that we do more than what we've been doing. And this is not in my notes, but I sense a complacency in not only the people of God, but in this nation, where we've settled for just what's happening and it becomes okay. When voices are silent, there is bondage, there is brokenness, and it's not healed. And so I'm hoping today that it begins here and that it begins with us. So our theme today is a mighty long way, past, present, and future. And I want to read this, and I want to thank those who've come before and who've spoken, who've given the proclamations, and these wonderful young ladies, these women who are going to grow up and rise up, and we pray that we're going to leave something good for them to take, that we're going to leave a good legacy for them to take, right? We're going to leave good ground for them to take, right? And we're not going to rape the land and leave them nothing. We want to leave them a good legacy. And so in the song that they sung, this stanza, it says, "Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed?" Haven't your fathers and your mothers and people gone on before you hoped for better for you? Hoped that things would be better for you, that you could do more than they did? It says, we have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last with a white gleam of our bright star is cast. This is the second stanza in this often known song, the Lift Every Voice and Sing, and it stands in perfect harmony with the theme of today's event. We find ourselves standing in this very moment with feet firmly planted in both our past and yet touching the edge of our future. Yes, we've come a mighty long way, but we still have so far to go. The last few years have seemed more like walking backward and losing hard-won gains from yesterday rather than moving forward and rising up. We find ourselves perplexed by the open season of hunting where the trophy appears to be black and brown bodies. It appears to be the trophies of righteousness and justice and truth. And with very little apology and seldom any reprimand or charges, the cost is borne by the families left in the wake of hatred. Now, who's to blame is not the matter, because visionaries like Martin Luther King Jr., he did not spend much time or respond to pointing fingers at people. But instead, he aimed his sights squarely at institutional structures and legal structures that seem blind to the humanity of people, deaf to the wailing cries of fear, dumb to speak out against tyranny and persecution. I'm reminded of a line in the song Strange Fruit. Here is a strange and bitter crop. The seeds we plant today will surely produce a harvest tomorrow, but will we be pleased with what it brings forth? Yes, we've come a mighty long way, but we have still so far to go. Now, after the election of President Obama, many of us thought the battle had been won, and we hung up our signs and we put away our marching shoes. We hoped, along with many, that this would somehow usher in an era for equality and opportunity and new chances. But what we found was that his appearance only brought to the surface deeply rooted racism and notions and theories we thought long put to rest. When we think about the ability to change hearts and minds, there has really only been one person, one man who was able to accomplish it. And that is Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah. And being God, he has access to a power that one man alone cannot wield. To hang change and reformation on one person was unfair at best and grossly negligent at the worst. Change requires the effort of the masses. It requires our diligent engagement. It requires a determined vigilance. It requires us not putting things on the back burner, but seeing things squarely as they are and being willing to stand up to power and to speak truth. We cannot afford to disengage from the hateful rhetoric that we hear, to silence our voices, to dismantle massive incarceration, to deal with police brutality and economic strife. We cannot afford to discount our outrage, to opt out of the fight for fear of reprisals that are sure to come. How do we tune out the cries of our brothers and sisters? Because we are one. And oftentimes we say, let's pray the Lord's Prayer. But the honest truth is that the Lord's Prayer is in John 17, where he said, my prayer is that you would be one, as me and the Father are one. That was his prayer, is that we would come together, that it would not be about our color, our gender, or any of our even beliefs. There's some things that we can disagree on, but can't we agree in equality? Dr. King said, yes, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But he goes on to say, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are bound together. And so the idea that when they fall, it doesn't affect me, we know is not true. And we find years later that those chickens are coming home to roost. We must collectively take on the preservation for the intrinsic right and the intrinsic value of Black lives. Lives that are not worth more, but certainly not less than any other lives. They are significant and they are prized. Yes, we've come a mighty long way, but still have so far to go. I remember this line from another speech by Dr. King. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I want to tell you that we need this generation to rise up for the generation that is coming. We need leaders who will say that the fight I wage today may cost me my very life, but it's worth it. The cost of freedom is borne by the older and wiser. Freedom cost our ancestors their lives, but they knew it was for something greater and it would be worth it. They had looked over into Canaan and they saw that it was prosperous and it was flowing with milk and honey. And yet they knew that they might not ever get to experience it for themselves. We have a legacy to leave for the next generation, and we have knowledge to pass on. And this, I'm speaking not just to the elders, but I'm speaking to the youth as well. We have the advantage of experience. We can no longer afford to be silent and sit on the sidelines and let our youth take on this battle with little discretion. We cannot afford to let outside voices shape our movements, characterize our frustration as reverse racism, or vilify our motives as subversive. We are American. As American as sweet potato pie, and we love this nation that often seems not to return our affection. We do a great disservice to our children when we tell them that they have it easier than we did, that growing up is anything but uncomfortable and hard, and that challenge and difficulty is to be avoided at all cost. We set the example by what we choose to fight for, and also what we remain silent against. We do a great disservice to our children when we tell them that because of their skin color, they are entitled to anything but an opportunity, both black and white and brown and red and yellow. Teach them that those things that come easiest are far less appreciated. As any parent knows, when they purchase an expensive gift for their child and they notice how quickly it becomes a coaster for a dripping wet beverage. But when you make them spend their own money, somehow the value increases and it remains pristine and it remains much longer than if you had purchased it yourself. Knowing the value of something means not only to understand its cost, but what sacrifice is being made for its purchase. We cannot continue working in reaction to brutality and discrimination, but rather we must get out in front of these assaults and begin creating plans that dismantle systems from the inside. No, we will not go gently nor quietly into the dark night, but we will cry aloud and spare not. We will lift up our voices like trumpets until heaven hears and providence answers. This is a watershed moment for our country. The nation stands on the precipice of a great opportunity in the midst of political turmoil. Coming out of a divisive election, this country has elected a new president who seemed to show little concern for what will unite us, what will bring our country collective prosperity and mend the reputation in the eyes of the world. There could be much fear and anxiety, but I am optimistic that despite darkness covering the earth and even thick darkness the peoples, the light will become brighter and glory will rain down from on high. I'm absolutely convinced that when darkness seems to grow more dim, that light overtakes it and casts it out. That nations will come to our light and come to the brightness of our shining. I'm convinced. And I will not be shaken from that faith. There is something about the collective. Thank you. There's something about the collective. There's something about this word church. And the word church, don't be afraid, the word church comes from the word assembly. Church does not mean a building. It means an assembly of people who are like-minded. So whether we gather together within hallowed buildings or we choose to connect in aggregates of like-minded people in a park, there is a need to come together. So today, whether you are red, brown, black, or white, this celebration is not about what makes us different, but what unites us. The dream and desire for a future with hope and about how we can get there together. This celebration of the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is about using your voice to make a difference. Giving voice to the dream of equality, prosperity, opportunity, and camaraderie. We are the Dream Collective. And that dream can only be fulfilled by each and every one of us joining together our time, our talent, our resources to change the course of our nation. Don't let today go by as any other holiday without you personally making a commitment to be part of the solution. You know, what stands out to me is this, and it's been ringing in my spirit all day. Let justice rain down like water and righteousness flow as an ever-flowing stream. You are filled with rivers of living water, and there are thirsty people ready for you to pour. Thank you.